All right, Naughty Dog. I don't know if you remember back in like 2024 or 2023, I believe it was. They put out a documentary, like a whole documentary about the making of The Last of Us Part 2. It was last year, a year ago. Okay. Naughty Dog, if you remember, they had a lot of troubles in the past about, the whole crunch culture. They were in the spotlight because people started calling them out for having a pretty serious toxic crunch culture in their company. And developers keep getting burnt out. They were having like 70, 80 hours a week crunch culture, and it was pretty freaking toxic. Naughty Dog was one of the culprits. It wasn't the only company was doing it. A lot of other development companies were doing it, but Naughty Dog was one of them. So yeah, I know exactly. It's pretty crazy. The crunch is a serious situation in the gaming industry even to this day. Like a lot of Western studios have started to dial it back a little and cut back the crunch culture. Yeah. I'll get to that in a minute. But Naughty Dog, being a Western studio, obviously had to face the consequences of this. So part of their significant shift was to move away from crunch culture and not set themselves seriously short deadlines and let people work through their workload. They released a documentary. I don't know if you remember this. They released a documentary last year with the focus of making The Last of Us Part 2 called Grounded 2, and in which they said this. Listen to this.
The failure of trying to alleviate crunch was if you have great processes and you're super organized, that doesn't fix crunch. What that does is it allows you to make a bigger game.
We read the postmortem feedback for The Last of Us 2, and it was really, really upsetting to see what coworkers had gone through. So we were highly motivated to try to figure out how to fix it.
Everything about our workflows were already being upended with remote work and everything. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, we got to do this now.
And we knew that to make the real changes we did, it would take the entire studio working together.
We now have the goal for Naughty Dog to eliminate crunch.
The only thing that fixes crunch, the only thing is just deciding that you're not going to crunch.
When we onboard people, we tell them, we have a reputation as a studio for crunching, and it's something we don't want. And it's something we're not going to do anymore.
First, we had to do what is crunch. Let's define
what is crunch. What is crunch?
Because when you just look at hours, that turn out to be too simplistic.
It's a multitude of factors. It's not just like one thing. It's not just, because of this is what's causing crunch. It's literally like so many of these little things.
How do we make sure no one at Naughty Dog burns out?
Okay, so Neil Druckmann, the man, the myth, and the legend himself, says that they're on the right path to eliminate the crunch culture because, it is a bad thing. It is a bad thing. But it is also not easy to get rid of. They're working on it. They're actively working on it. And what they wanted to do is, be conscious about each employee's workload. And if they're struggling, have them reach out to others and, work it out. Yeah, you digging it? Okay, good. Okay, so they were on the right path and they were praised for it. And they have been pretty transparent about it.
Every couple of months, we send out a 90-second questionnaire that goes, are you worried about your workload? Are you worried about having to work overtime? If you feel like I'm overburdened with work, you have to tell somebody.
Wait and see.
We used to, as a studio.
Okay, so look at that. They're having food and it's amazing. I mean, it looks like a place that you might want to work. And when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, I wish I could work at Naughty Dog. The reality of the situation when it comes to crunch is, even in like any business, when you're working on a project, there are some certain expectations around it in order to put in a significant amount of effort, depending on where in the structure you are in the company, right? If you're a manager, like what level of a manager are you? What level of a worker are you? That sort of thing. It depend on like the level of responsibility you have towards the specific project that we're talking about. The expectation is there would come a time within that project timeline where things will just kick up a notch and you're just going to have to put in a little bit more effort to get it over the line. And sometimes it can be about the amount of work you got and the meeting the deadline, whether you like it or not. Every project you work on always have deadlines. When you're reaching it and you just know that you haven't done the work required for it and you need to crank up your workload in order to reach it, you're just going to be working more. That's the reality with any type of business, regardless whether you work in gaming industry or any other industry. What's different is when you're working on a project, sometimes it could be a mix of the management making you work more, or it's because you've been slacking and you just have to pick up the pace and then just try to catch up with your work. It could be either one of those two things, or just a mixture of those things, right? It seems when it comes to gaming industry, the crunch itself mainly caused by management making you the crunch. It's not because of like your personal slack. That's where the issue is. We have established that Naughty Dog has been on the right path to eliminate the crunch culture. Bloomberg has dropped this article. This was yesterday. So employees at Sony Group Corp, Naughty Dog Studio, are working mandatory overtime to finish a demo for their next video game, Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, reviving an infamous workplace tradition that is increasingly frowned upon across the industry. For the past 7 weeks, the Santa Monica-based studio behind The Last of Us has been pushing its staff to work long hours to get ready for an upcoming review of the demo by its parent company. According to people familiar with the situation, starting in late October, staff were asked to begin working a minimum of 8 extra hours a week and logging their overtime in an internal spreadsheet, said the people, who asked not to be identified because they weren't authorized to speak publicly. This overtime period was an attempt to get the production back on track after several missed deadlines. Okay, so it seems Naughty Dog has brought back the crunch culture. Well, yeah, I mean, it looks like, they're logging their overtime and they are getting paid for it. Okay. The employees were instructed not to work more than 60 hours a week. Staff were also told to return to the office 5 days a week for this period, up from 3 previously, sending some employees scrambling to find alternative care arrangements for children and pets. Representatives for Sony and Naughty Dog declined to comment. Naughty Dog have had no crunch culture for the past couple of years, ever since, they've been working, as they mentioned in that documentary, Grounded 2. You can go watch it. And now they're requesting people to return back to the office 5 days a week and not to work more than 60 hours. That means they're required to work 8 extra hours a week. Pretty dire circumstances, and it could be very annoying to the employees, because these guys probably make their schedule and their life around working from home, and now they have to arrange, like they said, childcare and pet care and other alternative care arrangements, because now they're required to come into the office 5 days. That extra 2 days that you have from home, you have to work. I understand from a business perspective, the company, there are security issues. Okay, security issues when you work from home, especially for companies like, video game development companies like Naughty Dog, Rockstar, Sucker Punch, Insomniac. These guys all had hackers break in and actually stealing their work in the past. So, like, people trying to get access to the projects that you're working on is a thing when it comes to gaming industry. So there are security risks to worry about as well, especially when you're getting closer to an end of the project. In this case, I'm assuming this is the demo they're talking about. So we're getting a demo for Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. As it's getting closer to its delivery date, I'm assuming there are security concerns as well. So they're requesting people to come to the office and work full time and also work overtime. It's crazy. It's really crazy. Mind you, this could be because prior to October, Sony must have been like, okay, guys, you have been slacking quite a lot. You haven't released like a game since The Last of Us Part 2. It's been like 7 years. What are you guys doing? They must have realized they've been actually slacking quite a bit because of, no crunch. But they haven't actually delivered any actual new game in a really, really long time. We haven't had a Naughty Dog game on the PS5 era, and now we're already like more than halfway through the PS5 cycle, and we're almost getting close to PS6 now, and we still haven't received a Naughty Dog game. It's pretty crazy. I think they started to like realize, okay, we gotta deliver something, so this is why they have to pick up the pace. Crunch culture in Battlefield 6 sessions. Yeah, that's it. Gotta work overtime for Battlefield, bro. You gotta win the war. You gotta win the battles to win the war, bro. What are you talking about? It says in this article, this overtime period was an attempt to get the production back on track after several missed deadlines. So it seems they have missed so many deadlines, and that's why they started to put this. So it sounds to me like a pretty bad management issue on their part, and that's what led to this whole crunch situation, and the way they're handling it, pretty bad. Like I said before, they haven't actually had a big IP, like a big project where like a new game is delivered ever since this elimination of crunch has put in place. This was put in place after The Last of Us Part 2 was delivered. Okay, they said like actually kind of halfway through, because they had a lot of issues with, you know, the crunch culture during the development of The Last of Us Part 1. Halfway through the development cycle in part 2 of Last of Us, they put the, you know, non-crunch culture put in place, and ever since then they actually haven't really delivered on a new game. There hasn't been an instance where Naughty Dog had been able to successfully deliver a new game without having crunch being part of it. I hope you realize that, even though it's been like 7 something years ever since the last game was released. They did remakes and remasters and whatever, but those don't count. So it looks like they're failing in the management side of things to make sure that, you know, the timelines are on track and the workloads are deliverable for each employee, and now they're putting crunch back in place. It's a pretty bad look on their part. I think this is partly because Neil Druckmann has been quite busy making TV shows instead of games. And also, there's another aspect of this that we are not considering, which is Eastern competition. As we have seen, we're getting insane amount of competition from the east side of the world. You know, Eastern devs don't really care about crunch. Like you said before, Japanese devs, you think they care about crunch? No, man. Like crunch is respect. Crunch is respect for those guys. Like if you don't crunch, you're not working. You know, you gotta get up 5 o'clock in the morning and work until 10 o'clock at night. And if you only get 2 hours to sleep, and that's respect. And this is same through like Chinese devs and Korean devs. Crunch is not seen as a thing that you have to eliminate in those countries. So you're getting some serious competition from the Eastern devs now, and they're like pumping out like seriously great games really quickly, and these Western devs now have to try and keep up with that as well. That could be part of the reason. Do you remember Blood Message? This is one of my most anticipated games. When I first saw it, it was crazy. But this is the game. And Eastern devs are delivering this level of quality. Where Winds Meet is one of them. It's a free game. And this is coming, I think, next year, I think. Or the year after, I think next year. They haven't said anything. But we got this one, and God Slayer is another one. We got a whole bunch of games that are coming from the East. And they're gonna be pumping out these games like very quickly, within like a couple of years at a time. And we already seen a whole, like a surgence of these games coming out. Every couple of weeks we're getting a new announcement for what, like a game coming from the East. Look how good this game looks. It's a crazy time for Naughty Dog, and they're going back on crunch. And like I said, because of these Eastern devs kicking ass and really stepping up the game, and they don't have to worry about crunch, we might actually see crunch slowly returning to the West again. I know, I hate to say it, but with Naughty Dog actually taking the first step to bring back crunch like this, we're probably going to see this coming, like sneaking its way back into other companies too slowly, and we're going to hear about it, and we're going to make a fuss about it. Would it go away? Probably not. Probably not. As long as it stays away from Australia. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Even in Australia, it's kind of an issue, right? Like we're trying to pass like 4-day work week over here in Australia, but like The government is not budging and the companies don't want to do it. It's pretty crazy. And some of the companies that I have worked previously in the past actually have gone back on hybrid work culture. They had the hybrid workplace put in 3 days work from the office, 2 days from home. And recently one of the companies that I used to work, I heard from one of the guys that I used to work with, they went back and they're requesting people to come back to the office full time. There's no more hybrid. I don't know what's going on. Don't know what's going on. And there are companies that have gone fully remote. And I adore those companies for doing it because, if that means you can get the work done, then why the hell not? Shouldn't make a difference where you work from. Anyway, I'm just going on a tangent. In 2021, after facing burnout and some attrition among its workers following the release of The Last of Us Part 2, Naughty Dog began building a new team of producers charged, in part, with alleviating the overload of work on upcoming projects. But many of those producers have left the company, according to the people familiar with the situation. Oh. Okay, so according to Bloomberg, Naughty Dog put people in charge to actually manage this whole eliminating crunch situation. And those producers have left the company now. Okay. I mean, I guess that makes sense. So is that why that they're bringing back crunch culture? What is going on? Some teams at Naughty Dog worked long hours to finish the game's debut trailer, which was released last December. But this is the first time in recent years that overtime has been mandated across the bulk of the studios. The game is slated for release in mid-2027. It's not even coming out next year, bro. According to the people familiar with the schedule, leaving some employees wondering if the overtime requirements will get worse later in the development cycle. Yeah, so this is a real concern. Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet is not due to release until mid-2027. This whole crunch situation is purely because of a demo. It's not even the full game. They're just trying to get a demo out. That's where the crunch is. So yeah, the employees are right to worry about, the crunch overtime situation getting worse, getting closer to the release date, because that's what usually happens. Like I said before, with any project, as you get closer to the release date, sometimes you just have to work harder and work overtime. That's kind of a given in most industries, and it's the same with gaming. If they're already warranting overtime requirements this early in the development cycle, don't know what's going to happen to us the release, man. It's crazy. For most staff, the recent period of mandated overtime ended this week as Naughty Dog finalized the demo. Management told employees that the company will return to its standard requirements of 3 days in the office each week through the end of January, according to people familiar with the communications. The company said it's planned to provide a more detailed schedule for 2026 after the holiday break. They are planning to go back to normal, so it is a temporary crunch, but this has been the issue before as well. Like, the crunch wasn't always present. It just always happens whenever you get closer to the project delivery date, and people just have to crunch a lot. What do you think about this whole situation? I honestly think that crunch is going to make a return for most of the gaming companies now that they have tough competition from the east as well. It might not be as bad as it used to be, but we're definitely going to see some mandated overtime requirements. Unfortunately, maybe this might force people to form unions, maybe. I don't know. Like, Rockstar employees apparently tried to do that and it didn't go so well. We all know about that news. But I don't know. This could go to complete and utter shit very quickly. Or we're just going to see this happen very slowly but steadily. And no one's even going to notice until someone starts speaking out and it's going to be a whole thing again. Who knows?